Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream panel discussion on this, a Friday, February the 13th, 2026. I'm David Menzies, and joining me from somewhere in the hinterland, in a bunker in northern Alberta, is my beloved co-host, the sensational Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, Sheila?
David, I'm great. I'm just busy taking care of my grandchild, which is, I guess, a sourdough starter for my daughter, who's off playing rugby, and she's left me in charge of her plants and her sourdough. But yeah, I'm staying busy with that. We've got a packed show. I normally don't host on Fridays, but I'm really glad that I'm here today because we've got two excellent panelists to discuss, the international story that is consuming all the oxygen, and maybe, although I doubt it, will it prompt discussions about root causes? Not sure yet. But I'll tell everybody what we're doing, and then we'll bring our panelists in because I think our viewers at home will have a lot to say. So if you're watching us on Rumble, that's a great free speech platform. If you want to support the work that we do out of the goodness of your heart instead of the forced coercion of this state, you can leave us a Rumble rant. If your Rumble rant is over the $5 US cutoff, we'll read it on air. If it's under that, time permitting, we'll do our best to get to it. Now, I have a hard out at the top of the hour, so do our guests. So anyways, I'll try to keep us on track. I feel like I've already lost control of the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, same rules apply, but their paid chat is called a super chat. And there's an opportunity to support us, even if you missed the live version of the show, and that's by way of a paid comment called a super thanks. So those are the rules. David Menzies, shall we bring our guests on?
We shall, and you are so right, Sheila. We have a wonderful panel. First of all, Odessa Orlewicz. She comes to us from Vancouver. She is the host of Liberty Talk Canada. How are you doing today, Odessa?
Great, but considering the circumstances and what I saw this morning, the vomit that came out of the mainstream news, not as great.
Yes, and that will be the topic du jour, and I can't think of a better individual to talk about this than yourself, and of course our other panel guest, that would be Billboard Chris in Surrey, BC. How you doing there, Billboard Chris?
I'm doing fine. The battle continues. This was a very sad week. But it's important to continue to educate Canadians about what's going on. So let's do it.
And Chris, why don't we start with you? I think there were two tragedies that occurred. Of course, the mass shooting. It was despicable. It was reprehensible. The other tragedy was, I know the Olympics are on right now. I don't think there's an event called linguistic gymnastics. But to see the various members of the mainstream media, to Odessa's point, and even law enforcement, doing all kinds of contortions, making sure the pronouns were correct, making sure we got out there at the press conference a woman in a dress. That was very odd, wasn't it? Why add in the dress to double down on the femininity? Chris, already we see the whitewashing and the scrubbing and the downright censorship beginning. Driving in, to Odessa's point, I was listening to a mainstream media talk show, and they had an ex-RCMP official on, and he said, it's important to note that this is not about the shooter, it's about the victims. Wrong. It's about both. Of course it's about the victims, but if we don't analyze what made that monster tick to pick up that gun and kill all those innocent children, then how do we protect ourselves going forward? What say you, Chris?
Of course, it's always about the victims. And of course, you always need to analyze what's going on with this shooter. What led to this? So the de facto state religion in Canada is gender ideology. And that is not an extreme comparison. This is what's going on. We have this ideology, not rooted at all in science. It is something that sprung up in the 1960s, this idea that we have a gender identity that might be different than our sex. And with the victories of gay rights around 2010, 2015, all the money in the world poured into trans rights. And what they have done has been very successful in turning what is essentially a mental illness into a civil rights movement. And so we have this young individual, Jesse Strang, as he has always been known, not Jesse Van Rootselaar. Yes, that's his legal name. He's never gone by that name. That was his father's last name, and his own father says he doesn't go by that name. But the RCMP is using that name. Why do they do that? Well, if you do a search for Jesse Van Rootselaar, you're not going to find anything,
right?
Because he's never posted under that. So this is a subtle form of trying to whitewash this event and make all his online posts disappear. But he needed help.
Right.
He was a deeply unwell individual. Mm-hmm. He wasn't just identifying as trans. Boys can't be girls, by the way. But he was also taking ketamine, DMT, mushrooms, antipsychotics, antidepressants, smoking weed in the house. He has this huge cocktail of drugs in his system. He dropped out of school 4 years ago. He's had frequent mental health visits. Police took away guns from the house at one point. He tried to burn down the house. He was arrested for arson. He set a fire in his bedroom. Yet they recently returned the guns, knowing all these mental health problems are going on. But with trans identification, they don't treat it as a mental health problem. They celebrate it. They affirm a delusion, and they do nothing to get these individuals the help that they need. So we shouldn't be surprised when there are these outbreaks of violence. It's happening all over the US, and now it's come to Canada. This is the first major mass shooting of children in a school in Canadian history, and it was done by a trans-identified individual.
You know, in Odessa, I just wonder how many months or years into the future it'll be that someone like Chris saying this transgenderism is basically a form of mental illness, which I subscribe to too. How long will that be deemed a hate crime and you're in prison for it? But to Chris's point, this guy had a witch's brew of drugs and chemicals in him. This isn't the first time a young transgender has gone on a mass murder shooting rampage. Why is this a verboten topic? Why does there seem to be a philosophy in Canada that if it's trans, it's good, and if it's good, it's trans? And I think, Odessa, the most appalling aspect of this case were those so-called trans activists who said, you know, the real victim or the first victim of this was the shooter himself. Of course, they would use herself, but I don't play that game. What say you, Odessa?
Well, not only that, did you see Moose on the Loose covered it, Cosman covered it. City TV was busted, completely changing the image of this boy who's actually a man to look not only beautiful with makeup, they thinned his face and made him look about 5 years younger. And one of the worst parts is they put a glisten in his eye to make it look like someone who's so troubled and on the verge of crying. Look at that. So that image doesn't exist. They were busted, thank God, by Cosman and Moose. And so they changed it back to the original photo. These are not journalists. These are activists trying to make him look younger, skinnier, and like a little kid victim. I just find it absolutely disgusting. And you also talked about how this kid never went by the dad's last name, and you should have seen them scrambling this morning on Mainstream. So Mainstream this morning had to read out the thing that the father put out, and he said he's never gone by my last name. That's the only reason they had to scramble and start admitting that he went by Strang. I thought that we're supposed to honor who this kid pretends to be, must use his pronouns, but you didn't honor the last name that he went by since he was little. It was a mass cover up. You're right. So they have pie on their face. They're eating their own dirt. And I hope this just shows with what City TV did, what deviants they are.
You know, Sheila, to Odessa's point, this isn't the first time mainstream media has tinkered with the imagery of transgenders. I remember Leah Thomas, I call him Liar Thomas, the so-called transgender swimmer that was killing all the biological females in the pool. And there's this incredible photo. It's the before and after. I can't remember which media outlet. I'm going to guess. I think it might have been NBC. They applied Photoshop to make him look ultra feminine, but it had no basis in reality. But in the big picture, aside from the photographic tinkering, I think this is another disgraceful day for mainstream media. We cannot believe what they're reporting and even the images they're presenting.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday on the show. This is a symptom of just one of the many problems with the mainstream media is their obscene sympathy for the devil. They did the same sort of photoshopping American Idol nonsense when I think it was Rolling Stone magazine with the Boston Bomber, the Tsarnaev brothers. They gave him glamour shots. And very recently also with Luigi Mangione, they portray him as a freedom fighting heartthrob instead of somebody who just murdered somebody in cold blood. And you know, we've got this article here from the Daily Mail. Leave it to the independent journalists or the journalists outside the country to actually tell the story. It was sort of the same thing with the blackface photos of Justin Trudeau. We had to rely on
Time
media
magazine
from outside of the country. So again, I said it yesterday on the show, who could have seen this coming except everybody around this kid? The Twitter account for Jesse Strang was the content on, according to the Daily Mail, the content on the account was far darker and more violent, including references to neo-Nazi literature, pictures of weapons, and the meme acronym TFKY, which stands for "We are going to effing kill you."
May I interject here a little?
Yeah, please, absolutely.
So that account does not, the Daily Mail doesn't know this yet. That account, per all indications, was not Jesse Strang's. Someone changed the name of the account right
I'm
after,
glad you jumped in.
right after the murders. And it's like a hoax to make it look like he's been presenting all of these views.
I'm glad you jumped in, but we do know about his Reddit posts. And his Reddit posts were something entirely
I've seen everything.
different. Yeah.
I've seen everything. He even had, there's a site called Roblox or Roblox.
Yeah.
Where he made a game.
The pervert platform. Yeah.
He made a game shooting up a mall. And so my question is for the RCMP. He was very well known to the police. He's been arrested. They've gone to the home many times for mental health issues. Why don't they know about his online behavior? Because they recently returned the guns to that home.
Right.
And they never should have had those weapons there because he is a danger to himself and others. And this was all very easily findable if they did a search online.
Yeah. I mean,
and it was even part of a site called Watch People Die, where they watch people die. So this is a very dark individual.
Yeah, it's when, and I come at this as someone who's deeply entrenched in the firearms community. Why weren't those guns secured? Like, okay, Jesse Strang was not the owner of those firearms. They belonged to somebody else in the household. But Jesse Strang is very clearly in a mental health crisis. And as a firearms owner, you have an obligation to make sure that your firearms are safe. They probably shouldn't have been stored in the home. Actually, I'll say it. They shouldn't have been in the home. They could have been stored somewhere else. And he had access to them. And therein lies a huge problem, especially when when I renew my firearms license, I have to give the RCMP a list of my recent conjugal partners so that they can interview them before they can determine if I should be allowed to have a firearm. We have red flag laws in place already in this country. Why were those guns in the physical place where this very deeply mentally ill kid was? there a lot of people have to answer for some things that happened here.
And Sheila, to your original point about the media bias here, I mean, are we really surprised? All the media, the mainstream media that is, they're state funded. They know where their supper comes from. I can't give the names in the media organization, but a journalist in the mainstream media, who's a good guy, told me that the vice president sent 2 memos out warning all the reporters, do not mention the transgender element of this case, which is absolutely shocking. I think in this business, it's called burying the lead. And how can we not expect the media to be biased? I mean, let's put it this way. If I was a reporter on the ground covering an E. coli breakout at a meatpacking plant, and the CEO came out and he said, hey, Dave, I really like you. It's been a long time since you've been on a vacation. Here's a certificate, all-inclusive trip for 2 to Mexico. If I accepted that, my credibility is blown. But somehow the mainstream media, as my beloved boss Ezra Levant has said many times, the media watchdog has become the government lapdog. And Odessa, let's go back to you. Can we trust anything coming out of these cats?
I'm glad that more and more people are going to realize no. And mark my words, if independent media hadn't outed who this person was to the point where it was undeniable, they would still be saying a woman. Mark my words. And they're having tantrums about it on CBC. You asked me a question I don't think I actually answered. So I have a friend, and actually it was like before the whole COVID thing, it wasn't even about this, who is a 40-year veteran psychiatrist. He's old now. He used to talk about how he would have these men that wanted to dress as women and calling themselves trans, cross-dressers. And he said 99.9% of them that would say they wanted to be a woman, they actually had a serious narcissism problem and fetish problem. And so they worked out the point where it's like, no, you're actually a man, you just have a fetish. And so a lot of this whole accepting trans, there's very few actual trans where they're born with multiple body parts and there is some confusion. What they've done is they've opened it up, these activists, to anybody saying they're a woman. And so we've given mentally unstable narcissists this platform to say, look at me, I'm different. This is how I'm going to do it. So we have, this tiny percent that truly are trans. And, Billboard Chris might say, oh, I don't agree with you on that. But I'm talking where they're born with different body parts and they have to choose. And then the rest of them are being told, yes, put on that dress, go into the women's washroom, and you show those women. And actually, in my family, we have personal experience. We have a huge family, my husband and I. So I'm not going to say who it is, but a youth in our family has come out as lesbian, okay? So she briefly became part of the LGBTQ community, and now she's back to just LGB. She started hanging out with, and she's conservative now, a couple of trans guys. And they were presenting as girls sort of at school. And she actually told the family, what I saw with his behavior made me realize this is dark. He became best friends with her and another friend. And he started saying, I'm going to join the track team so I can destroy you guys. I'm going to join the volleyball team and show you girls who's boss. And it just became all about him and showing women who's boss. And so she saw the evil side of this. She saw the trans activists try to come into the gay kids and, talk to them about hormones and stuff. We have somebody in our family that is seeing the despicable movement coming in on these kids.
It's unbelievable. And Chris, to Odessa's point, I mean, I think the smart and the woke gays and lesbians and bisexuals, for that matter, out there realize the threat that these transgenders are to them. I mean, there are organizations, LGB without the T, Gays Against Groomers. And what I'm getting at is that once upon a time, if a girl was into boy things, boys' toys, climbing trees, it was a tomboy. She'd grow out of it. And if a guy was, for lack of a better term, effeminate, not into sports, well, he's just, he's just going through a phase. And maybe you wait until they hit puberty and that girl or boy turns out to be lesbian or gay. Now it's like, prep for surgery, get those drugs and chemicals and hormones into them. They're obviously a boy trapped in a girl's body, a girl trapped in a boy's body. I think this is so troubling, Chris, and the fact that we can't even talk about this, the government, the mainstream media, law enforcement, even public sector unions. I'll get to a social media posting about the BC union in your neck of the woods. How do we fight back against what I think is a clear and present danger?
Well, we just keep telling the truth and we just keep educating people, because this has to be done by a grassroots, because the politicians are all scared. The Conservative Party is scared. The Conservative Party just shot down a resolution at their last convention 2 weeks ago to allow counseling for these children who are struggling with gender dysphoria so that they can feel comfortable as their sex. Because we have this bill called a conversion therapy bill, Bill C4, where it's okay to convince a girl she's a boy. That's not conversion therapy. It's okay to convince an effeminate boy who might just grow up to be gay that he's a girl, and then he needs to sterilize himself and get surgery. But it's not okay to help them feel comfortable with their sex with counseling. So that's kind of insane, totally insane. Yet, even to this day, the Conservative Party at the convention voted it down. So what do? I mean, we're making progress all over the world. Let's get to some good news. Finland, Sweden, England, the US, even Canada all have systematic reviews showing child transition isn't helping any of these kids. And we even in New Zealand, they've stopped puberty blockers. In the Northern Territory and in Queensland and Australia, they've stopped it. In Alberta now, they've stopped it for kids under 16 years of age. That's progress. Of course, being Canada, a judge blocked the bill right away. So Danielle Smith had to invoke the notwithstanding clause.
Yeah.
But this whole thing is based on nothing but lies. And there is no such thing as a trans person. There is no such thing as a hermaphrodite with humans. That does not happen. No one is ever born with two sets of functioning gonads. In about 0.018% of cases, we're talking about less than 1 in 5,000 kids, is there ever any ambiguity at birth. And these are all different disorders of sexual development, they're called. There's a variety of these conditions. Trans activists call them intersex, as though they're in between sexes, or they're more than one sex. But they're all just medical conditions exclusively affecting males or females. One example is Emain Khalif, this boxer in the Summer Olympics who won the gold medal. He has a condition called alpha reductase deficiency syndrome, where at birth, his testicles were internalized, and it might appear at birth as though he was a girl. He has a micropenis. I'm sorry to get into these graphic details, but at puberty, at the onset of puberty, he's XY. He produces testosterone like any other man, and he's fully male. He just has a very unfortunate condition. This is not someone who is in between sexes. He's a man. And all of these different conditions, you can even Google it, even Wikipedia will tell you the truth. They're either male or female, because ultimately what determines our sex is the gametes that our body is designed to produce, sperm or eggs. But trans activists use this argument to get support for pushing this. And they really only have 3 arguments. The first is that kids will kill themselves if we don't transition them. The second is that puberty blockers are reversible. And the third is, well, what about intersex people? And that's really just a deflection. It's a diversionary tactic to get people to stop talking about this. So there's confusion about this subject, and we just need to keep telling the truth. And we need to tell it in a reasonable way so that we can reach the normies. Because out on the street, I can tell you for more than 5 years, I get more than 90% support from the population.
I'm not surprised by that at all, Chris.
Sorry,
and
David,
Sheila.
Sorry, sure, just real quick before we move on. I just want to go back to the absolute terribleness of the mainstream media. Olivia, I put 4 separate screenshots from 4 different news outlets. And these are not like CP copy. So what I mean is this isn't one news story that is republished over and over again in 4 outlets. You'll see that sometimes with CP, Canadian Press. So CBC, after Tumbler Ridge shooting, false claims about trans people have proliferated online. Next one. So that's Kevin Mammon. In the wake of the Tumbler Ridge shooting, false claims about trans people spread online. Samantha Edwards.
Same headline.
Next one. Toronto Star. Inflammatory claims about Tumbler Ridge shooter identity surges. Elected official claims trans violence. Who is this written by? Maybe I didn't grab it, but it was an entirely different author. Next one. 4. Okay, 4. Misinformation about trans people flood social media in wake of BC mass shooting. This is by Heather Wright. So these are not the literal same story, but they are actually the same story over and over again, different authors scolding us not to have these conversations, which means this is only going to happen again. If we are not able to discuss the pernicious contagion of gender confusion being inflicted on children, largely in our classrooms, but also in the culture, and then dumping SSRIs onto developing brains, this is going to happen again. And these people are telling us that's just the cost of doing business, I guess.
Well, you know what? That followed the money, Sheila, because the Liberal government is all in on the trans agenda. And the mainstream media gets the lion's share of their funding now from the taxpayer. And see, do you really want to lash out at your sugar daddy? And I'm sorry to be impolite here, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that our prime minister has a daughter who is identifying as his son right now. So you can see there's going to be no political will to reverse course on this, even though, as Chris said, he gets over 90% thumbs up on his positions, which are based in, that little thing called science. Remember during COVID, follow the science? Geez, what happened to follow the science? Did Biology 101 go out the door while I was napping?
Can I give a contrarian opinion about Mark Carney?
Love to. Yeah, please.
Now, we don't know truly how he feels.
Fair enough. Yep.
Okay, so his daughter, when he was governor of the Bank of England, they lived in London, and his daughter went to the Tavistock, which is the one gender clinic in England that all the kids went to. Right. And she wrote an essay later with her pangs of frustration, really, that she wasn't going to the part of the Tavistock where they were getting medicalized. She was jealous of the kids who were getting puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones because they weren't drugging all the kids back then. She didn't get medicalized at the Tavistock. She did at Yale, as an adult, get a double mastectomy. And as far as I know, she's still identifying as non-binary. Now, Mark Carney, during the election campaign, was asked a question by Juno News, how many genders are there? And he fumbled a little, as he often does. He's not a great public speaker unless the words are written down. But he said there are two sexes. And that was actually a really good answer. It was smart.
Fair enough.
But we don't know how he feels.
Yeah, you're right.
If I'm a dad, even if let's imagine I was a liberal, which I've never been for a second in my life. But you send your daughter off to this gender clinic thinking that they're the experts in this and she's having troubles. And then later in life, she gets a double mastectomy. 95% of dads out there are going to be devastated. Yeah, their daughter has been harmed. And we truly don't know how he feels about this. He's not like Trudeau pushing gender ideology all the time. And I have this contrarian opinion that he might even beat Pierre Poilievre to the punch on this, because we've had leftist parties in the UK, both Labour and the SNP in Scotland, ban puberty blockers.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Honestly, good for him for not talking about the private struggles of his child, actually.
Right. But Odessa, to Chris's point, evidently she is now non-binary. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you identify as non-binary, isn't that a binary?
Har har.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't tune into all these words anymore because it's just salad to me. You mentioned cover up of mainstream, Sheila, and there's also something else I know you guys know what's going on here is the reason they also didn't want to use the word Strang, the last name Strang, is because they don't want people to know the cocktail of stuff that these doctors are giving our kids. And because I have such a huge family and almost everybody has someone depressed in their family, we have personal experience with somebody who was on SSRIs and benzos at the same time. Benzos sometimes for sleeping. They, being a kind of normal person that just went through a dark time, wanted to jump off the roof of their house, told us, said, I know I'm not suicidal, but I want to jump off the roof. I also want to take a frying pan and hit my other person in my life over the head. I know this isn't me. So this person was strong enough to get off everything and get through it. But this dark, weird pull, apparently, to just jump. And mainstream news is never going to bash pharmaceuticals because they'll A, get sued, and B, that's half their money funneling up and down. So that's why they also don't want anyone to know. If it wasn't for the independent media, they're being forced to kind of mention there was mental unwellness. They'll never say, maybe all these SSRIs and benzos are causing these kids with mental wellness claiming they're trans to be violent, because it is narcissism and mental unwellness and attention seeking that most boys dressing as women are. And they don't want us to ever think mental illness and declaring yourself a woman is linked.
It's incredible. And Chris, to Odessa's point, the medical establishment, and again, to Sheila's point, following the money, is this part of the problem? I mean, I look at, privatized healthcare in the U.S. I think you've spoken about this in the past. This is a brand new multi-billion dollar revenue stream, the idea of transgender surgery. So, hey, even if you're an ethical doctor, keep your mouth shut if you want to work at this hospital, because these are big bucks.
Yeah, so a lot of doctors feel like they can't speak up about this or they'll get fired. And that probably is the case in almost every situation in Canada. It's not in the US. We do have a bunch of doctors speaking up. And on this money issue, what we're really dealing with here, and yes, there's money in it, but we're dealing with a true religion. These people are true believers. Almost all of the individuals running these medical organizations, like the WPATH, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, the previous president was a man pretending to be a woman. When we look at the ACLU's lawyers, it's a woman pretending to be a man. When we look at Australia, who runs their main TQ organization there, it's a woman named Teddy Cook pretending to be a man. She's been appointed to the World Health Organization to write policy for this, even though she tweets out pictures of a dog sodomizing a man and talks about orgies and how kids should get taxpayer-funded sex changes, and she's not a doctor. We have all these true believers running these medical orgs, and it's a tiny percentage of the overall population of health professionals loudly advocating for this, and everyone else just goes quiet.
Sheila, it reminds me of that classic fable, The Emperor's New Cloak, where it's only that one little kid who hasn't been corrupted, who still has his innocence, saying, hey, the Emperor's naked, but everyone else
Chris.
is just nodding along. Oh, no, it's a beautiful robe.
That's Chris.
How did we get here?
And these doctors, they can do anything to make money. I just want to say, they don't have to go work at the gender clinic at BC Children's Hospital. That doctor could have specialized in anything he wanted to. Like Brendan Hirsch, for example. This is a doctor, an endocrinologist, who sent a father we're not allowed to name in BC, sent him a letter when this father was trying to stop the transition of his own daughter, trying to stop her from getting testosterone at 13 years of age and puberty blockers. The doctor sent him a letter, which I've published many times. It literally states he can be a friend and advisor to his daughter, but he cannot intervene in this medical process because the doctor thinks it's necessary and the doctor thinks the child can understand. And that's a law based on the Infants Act in BC. Similar laws exist in other provinces, but parents are powerless to stop this. Parents are worried that social workers are going to come to the house and take their children away if they speak up against this. Psychotherapists who are on our side on this issue will not treat these children because they're worried they'll get charged with conversion therapy. Yeah. So Canada, of all the countries in the world, and I've visited 14 now on this campaign of mine, and I've worked a lot with people in the United States. That's where most of my efforts have been, actually, because we're making progress there. And it's my theory we have to fix this in other countries before Canada finally wakes up. But we are by far the worst. Like literally every institution is captured by this. It's in our schools, the BCTF, all the teachers' federations are radically pushing this, all the government, the RCMP. To be an RCMP spokesman or RCMP brass, you basically have to be one of these leftist bootlickers because it's a government-run institution. And if you don't fall in line with all of this, you'll never get to that position. 100%. So we need the Conservative Party to start speaking because the media can ignore me, but they can't ignore the politicians.
But Sheila, to Chris's point, 'twas ever thus we had age restrictions. I'm thinking lottery tickets, cigarettes, fireworks, pornography, voting, tattoos, driver's license.
Yeah.
So how is it that the age restriction module goes out the window when a 13-year-old, to use Chris's example, says that she wants to be the other sex, or at least pretend to be the other sex, and that we're talking about serious drugs, serious surgery. Again, how did we get here, Sheila?
I think Chris just explained that. But yeah, like I remember the olden days of 90 seconds ago where kids weren't allowed to modify their bodies without their parental permission. Like, can't get a tattoo, still the case, got to be 18. Can't pierce your ears, still the case, got to be 18. I know hairdressers that won't cut the hair of kids that are under 18 unless their parents are sitting there. So, I mean, this dangerous experimental procedure, and a lot of it is cosmetic, by the way, failed cosmetic surgeries, being inflicted on children. It doesn't follow any of the accepted protocols where we know that kids under the age of 18 are incapable of making these sorts of life-changing decisions.
100%.
Can I just speak about
I'm
a
told
point
by
that
my
would-
producer that we have to say goodbye to you at the halfway mark, which is now. But
Okay,
before we
let's
do,
let Chris finish, though. He's going to say something good. Let him finish, and then we'll say bye.
yeah, I was going to get their final thought, Sheila.
Okay.
So you go first, Chris.
I just want to back up something Odessa said. A lot of these, so trans, first of all, trans is a relatively meaningless label, but what falls under this meaningless label? There's a variety of things going on here. There are men with a sexual fetish called autogynephilia, which when you break it down to its 3 root words, literally means attraction to self as a woman. They're getting aroused by the idea of being a woman. It's a sexual thing for them. Then you have people who are gay. You have a lot of lesbians transitioning to men. You have, if you look at all the studies into gender dysphoria before they started drugging kids, going back decades, the majority of these kids grew up to be gay. And it was mostly effeminate little boys who were being told, oh, okay, well, really, this is because you were born in the wrong body. But they weren't drugging these kids back then. They called it gender identity disorder. It later changed to gender dysphoria. But almost 90% of those kids grew out of it when they went through puberty. Puberty itself was the cure. So there's a fetish thing going on with men. It's affecting gay people who are now being led to believe that really they're trans because they don't conform to stereotypes. And then it's all these girls caught up in it. It's a social contagion. Ideas are contagious, just like viruses are contagious. And you have girls having a hard time in puberty who invariably have had other mental health comorbidities and sexual abuse and autism, etc., who are just caught up in this craze. And they're in this online culture that's affirming them, and they're getting love bombed. So it's a variety of things going on here. But the bottom line is there's no such thing as a transgender child or person. We should just tell them they're beautiful just as they are. They don't need to change their body, because this is a crazy religion that I know in 50 years' time, we're all going to look back and say, what the heck happened to the human race?
Oh, I hope you're so right, Chris. And before we bid adieu, where can our viewers find you, my friend?
At Billboard Chris, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And if they want to support me, they can go to my website, billboardchris.com, and do so there.
Thank you so much. You're doing great work. And Odessa, your final thoughts on this subject, please.
Really quick, with a lot of the girls, it's trendy. If you're not accepted into certain cliques, you're always welcome in the trans group, and then everyone starts to roll out the red carpet for you. This youth saw that as well. They're actually just, it's trendy for girls to be cool.
You know, and speaking of red carpets, isn't that fascinating? In Hollywood, there is a disproportionate number of celebrities, by my account, who have trans children, so-called. So I think that speaks to trends and fashions as opposed to reality. Odessa, where can our viewers find you?
Rumble, Liberty Talk Canada. I'm off YouTube again. They hate me over there.
Yeah.
Twitter, Odessa Orlewicz. Facebook, Odessa Orlewicz.
Thank you, Odessa. You're doing a great job. So Odessa, Chris, happy Valentine's Day. And I hope we'll see you back on the show. You were fantastic. We're going to break right now for an ad break. And then on the other side, beware of illegitimate media. I wonder who's saying that.
Is that me?
Don't settle for being on the rate of last resort if you don't have to be. Check your most recent electricity bill. If it says the words rate of last resort on it, then there are likely better options available for you. In fact, you could save hundreds of dollars per year by switching plans. Check your bill, then go to ucahelps.ca to explore your options. You will likely find a better rate and could have hundreds more in your pocket by the end of the year. A message from the Government of Alberta.
Gun bans make great distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same rhetoric.
We will quickly
and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under liberal policy. But we are fighting back. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
All right, welcome back. I've got a quick message from our friends at TWC. Did you know that most methylene blue being sold online is the same grade used in fish tanks? Regular viewers of the show will know that I frequently use methylene blue because when I talk, you can see that my tongue is blue. So watch out for low quality bottles that are untested for heavy metals and made overseas. You can trust the wellness company's Reid Charge, a doctor formulated supplement combining powdered methylene blue with NAD plus and PQQ. This methylene blue is USP grade, ensuring top tier purity for maximum safety and effectiveness. This is not the sketchy stuff you will find on Amazon. Recharge is formulated with research-backed ingredients to optimize brain function and cellular repair, while supporting clean, lasting energy. Tap into cognitive and metabolic support that helps you stay energized, focused, and resilient all day long. Choose a trusted formula made for your body, not for fish tanks. Feel the difference with enhanced mental clarity, sustained energy, sharper focus, and protection against cognitive decline. And no, it won't turn your tongue blue. Head to twc.health/rebel and use code REBEL to get 10% off, plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/rebel. Use code REBEL to get 10% off. Okay, I think that's it. David, you're muted.
A long look at that tongue of yours. I want to see if it really is blue.
Not today. Sometimes it really is, though. It makes your teeth look whiter because it sort of, the blue makes them look whiter. But yeah, sometimes I come on the TV and my tongue is blue. And I notice that people send me emails wondering if I'm drinking Kool-Aid. And no, I'm just making my brain sharp.
We don't drink the Kool-Aid here at Rebel News, do we?
Exactly. Getting all the oxygen I can to my brain. That's what I'm doing. Okay, David, I'll let you pick the next few subjects. We've got 17 minutes left in the show before I hang up, close my laptop, and run out the door.
Yes, an incredible story from Blacklock's reporter. It is
These
Canadians should beware, rather, of illegitimate media for the sake of social cohesion. Now, who would be saying that? Well, it's the Heritage Minister, Mark Miller. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Sheila, is Mark Miller the second or third dumbest MP in cabinet right now? I know it's a photo finish horse race, but this was on the heels of cabinet giving the CBC its $1.6 billion annual grant. I thought the last one was 1.4 billion, but maybe.
Yeah, but they also get exclusive contracts too with the federal government to advertise all their bad ideas. You know, all the Canada.ca ads go to CBC, so that's an extra subsidy for them. But this is what
Sheila,
he said.
And the last sentence is that this money is needed to, quote, promote social cohesion. You know, Sheila, I want to get your opinion on what that means, social cohesion. To me, that means groupthink, to use a 1984 term.
Yeah, that's completely it. Sounds like something they say in North Korea, doesn't it? Or China. Sorry, we canceled your social credit card today because you were not socially cohesive enough. You said too many mean things against the state. So this is what he said. He said, when there is a lack of support for the public broadcaster, I think that contributes to the spread of disinformation, and social cohesion is therefore affected. And then Miller said, it's not about any sort of command and control of the media system you might see in other countries, but it is. Yeah. Because coupled with giving certain media outlets money, the state broadcaster included, but there's a bunch in there. They also have censorship and downranking on the other side, right? So they get you coming and going. They incentivize spouting the government line by giving you money, and then disincentivize you for rejecting that money and not. So as they said, it's like fighting on two fronts. Conservative MP Rachel Thomas of Lethbridge, who is the young MP who absolutely gave CBC the business, in the policy portion of the Conservative Party convention, just lit them up on the microphone. It was her motion to, or she at least argued for the motion to have the CBC exist in a free market, which would mean that they would never exist at all because nobody's paying for this out of pocket. She said, can you explain to the committee what you meant? What is social cohesion? Social cohesion is the ability for people to trust their institutions, to not feel like society is falling apart, that we are all living together and able to exercise the rights, in the case of Canada, that define us. But Thomas said that terminology has dark overtones. Experienced journalists have said this term is often used by the People's Republic of China to mean state control and zero tolerance for challenges. She said that seems counter to the values we hold here in Canada. And then she goes on to just basically call it like it is. The role of the media is not to have the back of the prime minister and to be able to tell the story the government wants told. The role of the media is to be truthful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, what a retro opinion of the media. But
she's a delight.
It's just incredible. And, more power to the Conservatives, especially Pierre Poilievre, who has pledged to defund the CBC. And when I see this kind of, monkey business about the state broadcaster is needed to tell people how to think due to social cohesion, this is terrifying. Like you said, Sheila, China, it's North Korea.
Yeah. China, North Korea, Turkmenistan, like all the real bad places in the world. If you don't think the same as everybody else, then you are a poison to the social cohesion. I don't actually care about social cohesion. I care about free thought. And if chaos comes from that, at least it's honest.
Well, speaking of free thought, let me let you take the lead on this one. It's our friend Jason Kenney. I think he's submitted the dumbest social media response he's written in calendar year 2026. Well, I'm talking about last Sunday. He wrote that the Bad Bunny show was, I think, the best Super Bowl halftime show.
That's because he hates Trump. I know. And I thought it was kind of funny because I know absolutely nothing about Bad Bunny. Like nothing. Zero. Don't care. Don't want to care. Don't want to be accidentally exposed to Bad Bunny. But I did do some digging around because Bad Bunny is Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
And Bad Bunny is a proponent of Puerto Rican independence. So I thought it was odd that Team Fear, Federalism Fear, was in favor of the Puerto Rican separatists just to spite Trump. Like these people are so ideologically inconsistent. It's crazy. But their one reason for being is hating Trump. Now, Jason Kenney, he also is anti-independence, as you know. Mm-hmm. And I think he grossly misunderstands the movement, and I also hope he never stops grossly misunderstanding the movement, frankly. He says, hilarious. Is it, Jason? You seem histrionic. But anyways, the bootlickers leading Alberta separatism desperately want to become the 51st state. Nobody has said that. No, like there are people who would vote for independence who might want to become the 51st state, but like anybody behind the APP or State Free Alberta or they've all said, we just want to be independent. What happens after that is a different conversation, but we just want to be independent of Canada and the United States. And we're talking to the Americans because if we separate, it's important that the Americans recognize us the way that they did Somaliland. That's how you become independent, is if another country recognizes your independence. Anyways, he said it's also, but no one in Washington above the level of intern will meet with them. Also clear the State Department has now slammed the door in their face because they realize that these guys have neither credibility nor a mandate. Quote, the White House and other administration officials sought to tamp down on the seriousness of the discussion, saying senior officials were not present and no commitments were made. A senior State Department official said there will not be another meeting. Okay. Well, I don't understand how that makes everybody an American bootlicker.
What a term to use, Sheila.
Well, it's Jason Kenney. Here's the thing. Jason Kenney is no longer premier. He could have been premier for life, by the way. because he was Harper's number 2. Everybody saw him as like Harper's number 2. He was the fixer. Harper would put him into ministries that were a mess, and he would fix it. Immigration, into national defense. Like, he would come in and sort of fix everything up. What was the other one? Jobs. He was the jobs minister for a while. He fixed that up. But when he came back to Alberta, and by the way, was so strong on religious freedom that he made it the point position of the Harper government that our foreign affairs mandate was one of religious freedom. We had an office of religious freedom, an ambassador of religious freedom. Persecuted religious minorities, and in most of the world, that's Christians.
Yep.
They were first in our refugee queue. And then, so when we got Jason Kenney as premier back in Alberta, we thought we were getting Harper's number 2, Jason Kenney, but we didn't. We got someone who cracked down on churches and talks down to what would have been his own base, by the way, because when you look at the people who would vote for independence and who vote for the UCP, the graph, as they say, is a circle. Okay, like, it's all the same people. That's who you're talking down to, Jason Kenney. But the thing is, he's not our premier anymore because he underestimated the anger of Albertans once, didn't he?
Do you know
and
what,
so I
Lisa?
hope he never stops.
You know what, Sheila? I think this is Jason Kenney's "a bunch of yahoos" moment when
Oh, he's
Doug
bitter.
Ford.
He's bitter. We got rid of you. Get over it. You know, this is crazy ex-girlfriend stuff from him. Don't be like
100%.
this.
And by the way, I can't get it out of my mind what you said just a few minutes ago, that Bad Bunny is all about Puerto Rican independence. Here's my thought on that, Sheila. Easy for Bad Bunny to be pro-independence for Puerto Rico. He's a multimillionaire, I'm sure.
Sure.
Ask Puerto Ricans how they feel about U.S. funding going south. I would argue Puerto Rico might be the next Cuba on the horizon. So that is a staggering position for Mr. Bunny to take. Moving on. Here's an interesting story, Sheila. Montreal Gazette reporting Air Transat, I believe Air Transat is based out of Montreal, suspending all flights to U.S. as of this spring. Why?
Okay, let's read. Air Transat is, so they're making it sound like this is a major company-wide decision. We're stopping all flights to the United States. The first line of the story gives it away. Air Transat is canceling its last 2 flights into Florida as of this spring, resulting in the suspension of its business into the United States. They only fly into Florida twice. The airline is canceling its flights to Fort Lauderdale and Orlando for the 2026 summer season, with a gradual end of its operations in the spring. Flights to Orlando from Montreal will end on May 3rd, along with flights to Fort Lauderdale from Quebec City and Montreal ending in May and June. Air Transat previously had as many as 2 flights a day to Florida. The decision whether flights will resume to Florida next fall and winter will be determined at a later date. She noted the airline's presence in the U.S. had been marginal, representing only 1% of Air Transat's available seat by kilometer capacity for the summer. Only 2 of the airline's 67 destinations are located in the U.S. They said they just saw a notable decline in trans-border travel demand throughout 2025. And so I guess the Eastern boomers were no longer flying to Florida. And so they canceled that. So I don't think this speaks to like a nationwide decline in travel to the United States. This is just 2 flights being canceled because Eastern boomers are doing as they're told.
Oh, actually, Sheila, I will push back on that. I'm sorry to give a reality check to the elbows up crowd, because the decline in Canadians going to the U.S., you hear this rhetoric. See, we're teaching Big Bad Orange Man a lesson. We're avoiding that place. Sheila, have you checked the U.S. exchange yet?
Yeah.
I mean, you are looking at a
Exactly.
haircut of more than 35%. Lady Menzoid and I, after the Rebel News cruise to Alaska, we went to California briefly last June. I was shocked at the prices in Southern California, even before applying the 35 or 40% haircut. Let's be real. It is an expensive destination. The idea of cross-border shopping right now, when you take that haircut, it doesn't make financial sense anymore. That is what is driving the decline in U.S. tourism, not this idea of a boycott of the U.S.
Exactly. I'm going to read a message from our friends at Rumble Wallet. Then we will show that video from Liz May because she's a cringe recidivist. She's the worst. If there's a cringe prison, she should be in there for 10 years. No early release for that woman. Anyways, and then we'll do the chats. And Lise, if you're watching right now, just text me. Don't pay to talk to me on the live stream. You're my best friend. Just text me. Anyway, are you sure? We'll skip this ad. Olivia whispers in my ear it's not working. Let's go to the chats. Okay. First one is from Lise Merle, who for some reason is paying to talk to us. She gives us $10 and says, Buck the Rainbow Unicorn was written to lead our children back to the truth. This is especially important in the wake of Tumbler Ridge. On Amazon, Buck the Rainbow Unicorn, or bucktherainbowunicorn.com. And also, David, can you do me a favor after you're done this stream today? Can you find a copy of Buck the Rainbow Unicorn and put it back on the shelf behind you?
Oh, did somebody steal it?
I think somebody
that's
did.
how hot that book is.
No, I know. I know it went home with somebody.
And Sheila, that's the answer to your question. Why is Lise paying to chat? Well, being the world's #1 LGBTIQ LCBO RBC author, she's got loads of dough now, I'm assuming. And she's just sharing the wealth. Thank you, Lise.
Yeah, we're spending it on van trips. Anyway, if we could put Buck the Rainbow Unicorn back on the shelf in the studio. I know somebody has taken the copy home. This is Lisa's best-selling book, as she said, designed to lead discussions between parents and their little ones about who loves them the most. And it is not the rainbow waving pigs down at the school. And I say pigs because that's how they're depicted in the book. That's not me calling teachers names. It's scary chickens and pigs who are indoctrinating the little ones. So anyways, that's bucktherainbowunicorn.com.
Oh, gosh. You know, Sheila, how I love your best friend, Lise Merle. She's just wonderful.
She's a delight. I describe her as a golden retriever of a woman. She just bounds into a room, high energy, and you just can't be miserable around her. She's just great. Dennis Delfina gives us $13.99, and I don't see a chat, but thank you so much.
Thank
you. JP Alberta First gives us $10 and says we need to leave ASAP. Canada's cooked economically, culturally, and politically. JP, we're trying, man. We can't even talk about anything firm until the fall. So,
well, JP would have a soulmate in Lady Menzoid. I hear this speech every night, and of course, Friday at 6, I tell her, that's it. It is now a no politics free zone. I need to recharge for the weekend. But there's a lot of boomers even in Eastern Canada that want to get out of Dodge too.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. You're not all carny voters.
No, it's so sad. Well, Sheila, that was a fantastic roundtable, I must say, with Odessa and Chris.
Liz May. We got Liz May as the cringe.
Oh, sorry, forgot.
Yeah. We got the cringe. Let's just watch it and then we'll wrap the show.
We know foreign interference is a threat to Canadian democracy. It was confirmed by the Hope Commission, and we've taken steps at the federal level for federal elections to deal with the threat of foreign interference. So my question to the Honourable Minister is there and what is being done now to consider the threat of foreign interference to provincial referenda that could break up this country when we know people in the White House are encouraging separatism? What are we doing to prepare?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Foreign interference at any level and transnational repression at any level of our democracy is absolutely unacceptable. We, of course, have taken careful note of the recommendations of the Hogue Commission, and we will be responding more fully, I and my colleagues, in due course. We have, of course, as the member pointed out, taken steps to protect Canada from our adversaries and to provide more information to the public about these threats. We will stand firm against attempts to undermine our democracy, and Mr. Speaker, we will take very firm steps to prevent people undermining our unity as well.
You know, Sheila,
a crazy person. Those two people are crazy. As an Albertan, I describe that as foreign interference. If we are to be an independent state, I don't want to hear from these people anymore. I don't want outside meddling in a decision that will be made by Albertans for Albertans. You have to have a physical Alberta address and your ID. And sometimes you need to be able to confirm that in 2 separate ways before they will take your name on those signature papers. I think our petition canvassers are as well trained as any Elections Canada voter booth person. Like I've laid eyes on the trainings. So I don't know what that lady's talking about. And also, we've done actually nothing to prevent foreign interference in federal elections, like zero.
But Sheila, I got to say, with all due respect, I think you oversold Elizabeth May's craziness, because I was expecting something along the lines of, remember 10 years ago, her singing an ode to Omar Khadr, our homegrown...
Yeah, she loves to sing.
Oh, yes. And I'm assuming she was drunk. At least that would give her an excuse.
No,
but
it was NyQuil, she said.
Yes. Oh, was it NyQuil? Okay, then.
She said it was NyQuil and sleep deprivation. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes you compose an ode to the tune of Welcome Back, Khadr, about Omar Khadr, our homegrown Al-Qaeda terrorist. What a disgrace. She's still around. Can you believe it?
Something wrong with that writing. There's something wrong with that writing. Really is. She keeps stepping down as leader and then just staging a one-woman coup to take the party back over several times.
I've never seen anything like that either, Sheila. What's behind that?
I think they're an online cult. I really do.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'll just keep my eyes open for the next Victoria Day parade in Victoria, BC, because I think the last footage I got of Elizabeth May, she was behind the wheel of a 640 horsepower Dodge Viper. But you know what? The hybrids and the EVs, that's for the little people, I guess. So unbelievable hypocrisy. Well, Sheila, thank you so much. I know you got to hit the road, and I want to thank all the viewers for tuning in, and of course our guests, Odessa and Chris, that were on the first half of the show, and a special thank you to everyone that made a contribution. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and as always, folks, stay safe and stay sane.
Hello everyone, Tamara Leach here with Rebel News, and I am thrilled to announce that I am heading out on tour to talk about all things Alberta independence with 2 of my favorite authors and journalists, Sheila Gunn Reid and Corey Morgan. We are doing 9 cities across the province of Alberta to talk about all things Alberta independence. You can expect live presentations from each of us, a panel discussion on independence, a Q&A, as well as a book signing and meet and greet following each of the events. For more information, to pick up your ticket, or to find out if we'll be coming to your community, you can visit independencetour.com. That's independencetour.com. Looking forward to getting out there and seeing all of you.